said, on one of the calculations, we said, oh, this doesn't look right because this is a newer error, so this was during a more recent review. We said, okay, well, how many more people were survivors of a deferred vested? We went back and looked and found that, and then on one of those calculations, we found a secondary issue. So we corrected all of them, communicated that to the pensioners, adjusted and calculated their pension, and then worked with them to ask for the overpayment waiver.
So that's been corrected now, okay. Are there other systems in place that would pop this up until you had a review at the end? I mean, is there anything else in your system that would on a more current basis tell you there's been an error or something doesn't look quite right?
We actually do have a lot of those in place within our pension calculation system. The one we have is fairly new. Up to this point, we were calculating pensions for the most part manually until 2016. Y'all, that's a whole next level. Yes. So, I mean, it was not but 10 years ago that literally we would order every paycheck for each single person because we have to determine credited service and their highest earnings. So we had to make sure they worked enough hours to get full, half, or no credit. So this is a huge improvement. So yes, the new calculation system, which we're still growing into, does have great checks and balances. It's a PeopleSoft system we're very happy with. And we are also looking at ways that we can kind of improve our own checks and balances from an auditing perspective inside our own house, right? Mm-hmm. You want someone who can check the work of somebody who hasn't calculated the pension. So we're always looking for ways to improve, but like everybody else, tiny staff's doing mighty work. Just full disclosure, this particular staff in COVID has done 4 times as many pension calculations in the past year. Wow. It hasn't skipped a beat. So with the existing staff that we had, but I think finally people, as they were facing COVID, a lot of the people that kind of deferred taking their pension to get through that recession period, I think they're finally deciding that there's time to leave. So I will say huge kudos to the staff, not only for identifying the error, correcting the error, escalating it, working with the pensioners so they didn't have a negative consequence even further by having to take the repayment back for 12 months. But our staff handheld all of that. I should say Dylan is the lead of that. He did a miraculous job working with all those people, communicating that error, which is these people were not looking for that. So Dylan gets a lot of credit, and then just really helping to lead kind of an overhaul effort to make sure we're really understanding every nuance of all the different pension calculations we have.
And how much dollar amount?
$76,000.
So, okay, so it wasn't like, okay, and not that that's it.
Still,
I'd love to ask.
We still gotta ask, we still gotta
But I think in the grand scheme of things, and again, this is not a consequence for the Metropolitan government, but $76,000 to those 11 people that are on fixed pension incomes, and their survivor benefits, those are typically less, right? Yeah. So, I mean, these are modest pension benefits that people really need that are fixed incomes, and I'm really glad and proud of the staff for identifying it and then also working with the pensioners.
And they understand what their payments are going forward, so they're
already been corrected.
Okay, so they're not expecting this other amount.
No.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for thoroughly explaining all of that.
And for our audience, our presenter is Director Hall of Metro HR. I wanted to make sure you were identified for those watching and listening in. And Councilmember Sora, you had a question or comment?
Yes, and thanks. Sorry I was a little bit late. Thank you all. I think it's great that we're able to make the people whole. And I love all that you've said about making sure that there's steps in place to mitigate it from happening again. The question that I have for you is, when I was listening in budget, there was a comment about we went through it with the pensioners and make sure they meet the qualification in order for us to be able to waive it. So are there people that did not meet that qualification, or did everyone meet the qualification?
Everybody did in this particular case, and so we wanted to allow enough time, but we also didn't hold up other pensioners, but all 11 that were impacted absolutely met the waiver. The good part is in this particular case, and there are some circumstances that won't meet all the criteria, but when the criteria is there, we can substantiate 3 of the 4 pretty easily without any help from the pensioner. We really do try to make this as easy as possible. The one thing we can't verify is whether it would deprive them of ordinary and necessary living expenses, because income sources can vary. But it's without fault or knowledge of the error, didn't induce any additional payment, without using reasonable diligence, had no way of knowing that an error had been made. Those are very easy for us to substantiate, and when I tell you how nuanced this particular error was, There is no way reasonably these people, I mean, could have ever seen it. Honestly, there's probably, most people, if you read it, you'd be like, I don't understand what the issue is. So the pension calculation team, which is led by Dylan, do amazing amounts of work on very different pension calculations every single day, and they meet everybody's needs. And like I said, that is increased threefold over COVID, and they have not skipped. We had to change our entire delivery model. We would meet with every single pensioner, and that became pretty daunting for pensioners. We've modified the whole thing, met the demand. So honestly, I like that we identify errors and we're not scared to raise our hand and say we have a problem, correct it, make sure it doesn't happen again, make the pensioners whole, and then take full accountability for it, and then continue to increase it the way they are. I'm very, very proud.
I think that the reason why the code does allow us to be able to do that is with the realization that it's a complex calculation. Now, the other thing is that I know you have up to 12 months to go back. So was this error caught before, within that 12 months?
Some of these went back a little bit longer, but most of them fell pretty close. The change on how this nuance was being done, because it was being done correctly for years and years and years, we think happened right around 2018. So honestly, by the time we discovered it in 2020 and then followed the process, we had to correct the pension right away and explain all that to the pensioners so that they knew what the new pension amount would be going forward. But in this particular case, some might have been within the 12 months. It's up to 12 months. Some might have been just slightly above that, but there wasn't gross amount of payments beyond this 12 months. If we had calculated the full amount beyond the 12 months, I don't know that it would have been grossly more than the 76.
So if there was anyone outside of the 12 months, are they responsible for paying back the overage over the 12 months?
No, if we overpaid somebody for 20 years, we could only go back 12 months from the point of discovery, and that's the way it's calculated. The code says the point of discovery. So once we correct the error, we do it from the 12 months back from that. If it's only 3 months that the error had occurred, we'd only collect up to 3 months. If the reverse were the case, and there is no Metro gets out of the obligation, but if the reverse were the case and we underpaid somebody, they would be able to come back on us 6 years. And it's been some time since we've seen that, but I have seen that, and those are interesting conversations to have, and I usually have to tell the person to sit down for a minute, and we say, we need to find out a way to cut you a check for X amount. And so those are sometimes, we're really sorry we made this error, but we're increasing your pension amount, and we're gonna give you a really big check behind it. So our pension system, our benefit system is very complicated, but it's very fair and employee friendly and very, very comprehensive. So I think it's a good system, as you've noted.
All right, one last thing, Chair, and I'll be quiet. And it could be because I'm coming in late. You did mention this in budget, and I think it's important to mention it here, especially if the audience are different, is the fact that this waiver, this amount, is not coming out of operations.
Correct. Correct. It is being borne by the pension fund, and that is one of the most soundly funded pension funds, well north of 90% funded. We've been in that status for quite some time, so we're kind of a gold standard when it comes to funding on pension, and we've maintained that for years. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions or comments on the resolution? Okay, we have a motion to recommend. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then we recommend the resolution. Any other business to come before the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.